Cornel West, for now the second time in 4 or 5 months, has changed ballot lines, has changed political parties. Obviously, he launched with the People's Party, very quickly was convinced to switch to the Greens, and now, apparently, he has left the Green Party and is running as an independent. So he tweets out, "People are hungry for change." You seem hungry for change. You change parties every few weeks. Seems like you're the hungriest for change that there is. They want good policies.
Excuse me, Charlene. What's today? Tuesday? Oh, it's time for me to switch parties again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forgot.
Who's left? Who have I not
Which one
signed
is
up
left?
with yet? Oh, we can't do the Libertarians. RFK's got that on lockdown.
I don't think he does. I think he's going to go truly independent as well, but we'll see.
Is he? Yeah.
That's coming out on Monday. They want good policies over partisan politics. We need to break the grip of the duopoly and give power to the people. So he's running as an independent. Let's take a look at the video that he put out in conjunction with that tweet.
Says we need you to be part and parcel of wrestling with this corporate duopoly, this two-party system that impedes, it gets in the way of the unleashing of the kind of policies of abolishing poverty and homelessness, of dealing with working wages, cutting back on militarism, and most importantly, trying to ensure that the best of who we are as a people can be more manifest, can be more concrete, because the crisis is real and these catastrophes are bombarding us. Please come join us.
All right. Your donations are in good hands with the Cornel West campaign, who's now on their third ballot line in 4 months. Yeah, write them a check for $100. I'm sure they'll manage that really, really well. Yeah, really well. Between Cornel West and Peter Dow. Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. So it was a mystery. What the hell happened?
It's like fantasy football for politics, this team.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Jill Stein put out yesterday, as this announcement broke, breaking: Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka wish Dr. West well, affirm support for a strong Green campaign. Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka, previously advisors to the West campaign, today wished Cornel West well in his upcoming independent presidential campaign in the following joint statement. As colleagues who helped persuade Dr. West to pursue the Green nomination, we appreciate the good faith effort he has made over the past 4 months. Running solo, however, may better suit his long-standing role as a fiercely independent voice of moral authority. While we share Dr. West's formidable commitment to peace and justice, we are respectfully parting ways at this juncture, as we are committed to building an independent, people-powered party as an indispensable vehicle for challenging empire and oligarchy for the long haul. In light of Dr. West's decision to run independently, we are in discussion with several former candidates about potentially entering the race to carry the Green Party's anti-war, pro-worker, climate emergency agenda into this critical election. Well, if you thought the election was so fucking critical, you'd have figured out a way to make this work, because whatever fucking loser you recruit to head your ticket is not going to get a fraction of the support that he would have.
Well, listen, Keaton, once again, you're missing the opening. We should run.
Yeah, we should run for the Greens. That would be actually interesting. Should we do it?
I think we should. One of us, between the two of us and the fucking meatballs they have, one of us will win.
Yeah, maybe.
If we put our heads together at 9, we could take over the Greens by 5.
Let us know in the chat, should we do it? With the Democratic Party now leading the charge for war and censorship, betraying workers on the rail strike and dropping the $15 minimum wage, outdoing Trump in new fossil fuel projects on public lands, and voluntarily resuming crushing student debt payments when people are barely scraping by paycheck to paycheck. For all these reasons and more, we need an independent, corporate-free People's Party more than ever, okay? In deciding to run as an independent, the West campaign leaves behind the ballot lines they would have had access to, as well as the guidance of experienced ballot access staff and Green volunteers familiar with the process in most of the 50 states. We expect this will be a formidable obstacle in the coming months. Though Dr. West won't be running with our team, he is offering an inspired, courageous example to voters and candidates alike. We believe he is making an immeasurable contribution to the 2024 election, and for that we are deeply grateful. Given our similar visions and agendas, we will continue to look for synergy on the road ahead. Okay, so this statement was about as confused as Jill Stein's interview on Sabby Sabs last night, and that's not a criticism of Sabby. I thought Sabby did actually a very good job at trying to get some information out of her. But this is very muddled. This is very confused. One paragraph leads you to believe that maybe Cornel wasn't as committed to their platform of anti-war, anti-censorship values, wasn't as militantly anti-Biden as they wanted to be. But then in that third paragraph down, she outlines that in deciding to run as an independent, he's going to have a hard time. He's not going to have the ballot access that he would have on day one going in with us, which suggests to me that she regrets that he's parting ways with them. So it's very, very confusing. I think there's
it's very political. She doesn't want to burn bridges with West. She didn't want to go scorched earth on him. At the same time, they apparently felt like they needed to say he made a mistake. So it seems like they couldn't resist making the argument public of what they must have basically said to him about going independent, while at the same time they didn't want to be like, fuck Cornel West. Like that's basically the upshot of the press release, and promote the Green Party at the same time. We need this party more than ever, and good luck to West, and this was probably a bad idea, and peace.
Yeah. Either way, just a really catastrophic and embarrassing error. I would say, from reading this statement and from listening to her interview on Sabby's show last night, that, we can litigate whose fault this was. At the end of the day, it's the same pathology that has corrupted Code Pink, which is just an inability to get your shit together when it matters and to execute. You have to execute in big moments like this.
Is this an example of that, though? Because
of course it is.
How much of this came from their side? Look, the Greens, that's a whole other thing. But how much of this came from their side? Because if you look at what she said, we talked about this. I mean, it seems more like Cornel started to do the math and said, shit, do I want to be this Ralph Nader figure in the corporate media and among the libs for the rest of my life? Well, it would be too embarrassing to just drop out. So, hey, let me go a path where I'm not going to have any real ballot access, and there's no way they can blame me if Biden loses.
Well, there's no way that Jill Stein would ever know that for sure, because if that's what's motivating Cornel, and I agree with you that that is what's motivating Cornel, he would never say that to anybody. He would take that to the grave. That's the whole point of dropping out off of the green ticket and running independent, right? Because, look, if he just quits altogether, then he's going to come off as weak and never for real, and that's very damaging to his reputation. At the same time, I don't think he wanted to be there in a situation where he knew he would cost Biden the 2024 campaign. And I said when RFK declared independent, I said this in our video that we put out that night. I said between RFK and Cornel taking votes from Biden, it is almost impossible at this point for Joe Biden to win, because he's going to be just bleeding too much support. If RFK's polling between 10 and 20%, and half of that's coming from Biden, and then you have Cornel polling between 5 and 10% taking votes from Biden, well, there's just not the math there for Joe Biden, which means Cornel's presence on every state ballot line that the Greens have it on means a pretty much certain defeat for Joe Biden. And I think that's the moment when shit got really real for Cornel West. Right? Before then, it was like, yeah, there's a chance I'll blow it for Biden. I guess I'll have to take that chance. Now, with RFK entering as an independent, Cornel would almost certainly cost Biden the race. And I don't think that he was up for that. And I suspect that is what motivated him. In terms of what Jill Stein is saying, both in that statement and on Sabby, yeah, she's not making it very clear. And I think the reason she's not making it very clear is probably because Cornel's not making it very clear. Look, if we look at the timeline here, he was recruited by Nick Brana to run as a People's Party candidate. He said, sure. My suspicion at the time, while I was grateful that he did it, I was thinking, he could have done this with the People's Party because he knew that they weren't going to get ballot access many places and he wouldn't pose that big a threat in November. So it's a way to sort of run a campaign and get his message out. and do whatever movement building he thinks he can do in service of his values, which I pretty much share, almost to a T, I would think. But he could do that without actually threatening Biden in 2024. Then he had these real radicals grab his ear. He had Sharma, he had Chris Hedges, he had Jill Stein over at the Green say, hey, you know, Cornel, if you're interested in running, it would be awesome if you ran with us because we actually have the infrastructure. We can actually get you on ballots. At which point he says, well, okay, I guess so, right? But what if I can't really say no because then I'm exposing myself as unserious about actually running. So he did it. And then when RFK entered, he's like, oh, no, okay, now I'm going to actually cost Biden the race. Now I'm actually going to destroy my reputation in elite circles in academia. I'm going to really, for real, burn all these bridges with corporate media figures who, like Anderson Cooper, who, you know, I moved to tears in the wake of the George Floyd protests, you know, who like me, who admire me. Now I'm really just going to burn every bridge that I've built throughout my life. I have to get out of this. And that's what I think, because I'm sorry, this decision, look, the bottom line, you could talk about the platform, you can talk about the movement that he's trying to build. The bottom line is this decision makes him less competitive in November. There is no question about that. And I know some people are saying it's easier to get on ballots as independents than it is in green. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. In California alone, you need over 200,000 signatures for ballot access. And 200,000 really means 300,000 because anyone who's gathered signatures before knows that a lot of them get invalidated. People have old driver's licenses or, you know, there's an error or this or that, right?
Well, especially with the Democratic Party working overtime to challenge every fucking signature.
Of course, of course. So you're talking about the report I saw.
They send their legal teams out there
and
challenge everything that you try to file.
Of course. 850,000 is the number I saw as technically the number. Which means really, if you really want to be safe about it, you need like 1.2, 1.3 million. How the fuck are you going to do that? It's October, by the way. It's not April, right? You have 7, 8, 9 months, right, to do this. The deadlines are, you know, between June and September generally for these different states. It depends. You need a ground game in all of these different states. You need people to pound the pavement and gather the signatures. There's no electronic shortcut to gathering signatures. You need an operation. That costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to build that out. How are you going to do that as an independent? So don't gaslight us into saying that, no, actually, this makes him more competitive in November. That's absolute bullshit. Here's Ryan Grimm. Don't believe me. Cornel West, after leaving the People's Party, is now leaving the Greens, pledging to run as an independent. Probably good news for Democrats, as he's unlikely to be on the ballot in some states. Here's the New York Times. The decision is likely to be a welcome one for Democrats, who in the past fought to keep Green Party candidates off state ballots. The Democratic Party is facing the prospect of a 2024 election in which multiple high-profile third-party candidates are on the ballot and are likelier to sway voters away from Biden than from a Republican challenger. Although Mr. West remains a candidate, he will now have to navigate the complex and time-consuming project of qualifying for the ballot in individual states without the support of the Green Party, who already had ballot access on, nobody seems clear on the fucking number. Some people say 18, some people say 20, some people say 40. Let's say 18. He's starting 18 states in the hole, and now he gets to pick and choose which states he pursues ballot access in. And here's my prediction. He will not pursue ballot access in swing states. He will only pursue ballot access in safe blue or safe red states, so that he is not in a position to actually affect the overall outcome in November of next year. That's my prediction. Sorry, I just wanted to get those two exhibits in.
No. I think the timeline of his process that you laid out, I think that's dead on. And it explains his behavior throughout this process. It explains all of these sudden shifts in strategies. It explains in the first place why he even wanted to get in bed with the People's Party. I think you're absolutely right, because he figured, okay, well, they don't really have any ballot access, so it'll just be a gesture, right? I'll be on the ballot in a couple of states. They'll probably be deep blue states. It's fine. It's not gonna affect the election. And then, he had people like Hedges got his ear, and he probably kind of got pushed into it. It probably started to take on a momentum that he hadn't really thought about the implications of. I think he, he liked making the rounds and talking about, jazz and how it relates to politics and having a platform and all that. Once shit got real with RFK, and I'm sure he had already been starting to think about the implications of following this course. Then he changed gears again. I think you're exactly right. My initial reaction when he first started playing these games, if you remember, I got very angry. And, then I backed down on it because, hey, man, maybe I'm wrong. This is what gets me angry about this. A lot of people are very upset about the way that the Bernie Sanders campaign in the end took advantage of their time, of their money, of their efforts. We don't need somebody else to take advantage of people's desire to create meaningful political change. Now, I'm not saying he's doing it to sell books like somebody that we know. I'm not saying his intentions are mercenary. I'm not saying that. I think he, genuinely wants to have a platform without actually threatening Joe Biden or being the cause of a Trump presidency. So in the end, it's not that his motives are self-interested in that sense. But at the same time, Cornel, he has to appreciate, Dr. West has to appreciate, you're fucking with people. You're fucking with them, man. You got a lot of people who got really hurt by that fucking Sanders campaign, man. You can't fuck around with people like this. Like,
exactly.
you want
a
a platform, man, go out there. You're a respected public figure, a beloved figure by almost everybody in the whole spectrum of what could loosely be defined as the left. You always have a platform, man. You're fucking Cornel West. You always have you don't need to play these games, man. You could have gone out there and talked about your opinions about politics and, go start a fucking Substack, man. People will read your shit. You're Cornel West, right? You don't need to do this because when you do this, you're asking people to put their time and their money into something that you're not serious about. If you were serious about it, you wouldn't have done it this way.
Of course. What were the last few months for? What did he do then with the Green Party? He took 4 months off of the game clock for nothing. Now he's back at square one. So all these people who got
because
invested
he doesn't want to get momentum. He's trying to play it both ways. Like he wants to have a platform, but he doesn't actually want to have a meaningful vote count at the end of the day. He's trying to fulfill both those objectives. Pay attention to me, but not too much.
I agree. I just do not buy it from people who are somehow trying to say that he's better off as an independent.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Yeah. It's fucking absurd. And now look, you want to say that the Green Party is a dysfunctional organization and that they are too dogmatic in certain views. Courtney, a friend of the show, posted on her Facebook that somebody was chirping about how he's transphobic at the Green Party. Like I said, I don't know enough to corroborate that, but I'm sure there are people at the Green Party.
This person was claiming that he did, and I don't think this is the reason either. Although what she's claiming may be true, that they had just reached out to him to change his messaging on queer issues because I guess he has said that trans athletes should, according to them, I've never heard him say this, but they're saying that he's saying that trans athletes should have their own category and they're calling that separate but equal and so on. I mean, that sounds like what I've heard of the Green Party. I mean, I get the impression the Green Party and the DSA people, that's basically the same people. It's the don't clap people.
Right, the don't clap people. Right, exactly. So if you want to say that, look, this organization is just not an organization to build a movement with because they're too dogmatic and joyless and too strict in their insistence that, you subscribe to every single idea of theirs or else you are this, otherized person who they'll never partner with. So if you want to say Cornel's better off building whatever movement he's trying to build on terms outside of the Green parties, okay, that's valid. But at that point, he's a movement leader. He's not a candidate for fucking president. That's the difference that everybody has to keep track of here. He wants to build a movement. He wants to start like Nina Turner, just, form some knockoff Democrat version of worker strike back. All right. If he wants to go do something like that and make it more radical than, to be aligned with the Democrats, fine. Look, Cornel can do whatever he wants. That's all well and good. But don't disguise what you're doing as a presidential campaign if you're not serious about running a strategic presidential campaign. Because in doing that, yes, you're asking for investments from people who don't have investments to make. I'm going to skip the line here because this is a good super chat from Everton Wright Jr. Thank you for the donation. It's very relevant to what we're talking about right now. He told Bernie, meaning Cornel, told Bernie he missed his moment to turn around and do the same thing, meaning he said Bernie missed his moment in 2016. He should have run independent because don't forget, Cornel supported Jill Stein that year. It's evil to run a campaign raising money from people who don't have it. It's evil. We need to stop acting like it's nothing. Exactly. If you're not serious about threatening the political candidates on the ballot next year. We're talking about a very narrow context here, folks. That's why I don't want to hear about the platform. Okay, the platform's better as an independent on the Greens. Great. The bottom line is you're running in a competition here, and you just set yourself back 50 yards, okay? That's what you did here by doing this. And
by design. By design.
So all of this discussion is happening in the context of a presidential campaign. There is a contest. There is a mathematical contest where people who get the most votes wins. And you were in a position with the Greens, whether you like everything the Greens are about or not, and I understand if you don't think that the Greens are, the organization you want to build out a movement with, that's your choice to make. But there's no question that the Greens were best positioned to give you maximum impact on Election Day. And this is a fucking presidential campaign where that is the goal.
Yeah.
And you are sabotaging yourself in that contest by making a move like this. And given the timing of RFK entering the race, which would basically render Joe Biden's reelection campaign DOA if Cornel were on the ballot as well, I think he did this to make himself less competitive on purpose.
Yeah, he's playing this game where he puts his foot on the gas and then on the brake, and then on the gas and then on the brake. He wants just enough visibility to push his ideas, and not enough to affect the outcome of the election. Not enough for anyone to be able to claim that he cost Joe Biden the election should he lose.
Exactly.
Final point, unless you have more to add. Listen, people have been burned hard. The kind of people who would volunteer and donate, you just lost all those people. You just lost them. So I don't know who you think's going to care at this point about your campaign. Your campaign's done. There's a certain number of hardcore, dedicated, post-duopoly leftists like us who would have given you 100% support, and but most of us have been burned very hard by the two Sanders campaigns, and we don't give our time or money easily. You just lost all those people. So I don't know who you think you got left. No, nobody's even going to care to talk to you about your fucking campaign. I mean, some people will, but I mean, my interest now in talking to Cornel about this has dropped to about zero. Like, I don't even give a shit.
Two more points I wanted to make here. One of them JR raised here, so I'll bring this up. They left when Dow joined. Dow served his purpose. There's been some speculation about, is this the Peter Dow effect? That's all speculation. I can't know at this point.
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't really know or to what extent he was involved in that. What I will say, though, is that Peter Dow, and I said this on CJ's show yesterday because I jumped on their afternoon stream. You talk about a guy who everything he touches turns to shit. Every single thing, whether it's the John Kerry campaign, the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Bernie Sanders campaign, the Marianne Williamson campaign, now the Cornel West campaign.
Do not let this man babysit your kids.
No, exactly. Certainly does not speak well of this guy, that you bring him in and a couple weeks later this happens. Don't forget, Peter Dow tweeted out, "We have an ironclad commitment to be on the ballot in November." Well, unless you got a trick up your sleeve, which I don't think you have because your track record is one of constant and repeated failure, then you're not going to be on the ballot. I would put the over under. Craig Pasta Jardula put the over under at 32.5. I want to call him up because whatever Super Bowl bets he's making, I'm going to take the opposite because I think that's way too high. I'll put the over-under for Cornel West's ballot access 4.5. 4.5 states.
That he'll be on any ballots?
The over-under means, the over-under in sports betting. Put the over-under at 4.5, meaning you bet, is he going to get ballot access on 5 or more?
Well,
or
yeah, but
fewer?
I'm saying the subject is whether he's going to get ballot access.
How many states will he be on?
How many states?
Yeah, I put it 4.5. I really do. At this point, who's to say he's not just going to quit altogether? I mean, come on, that's the trajectory he's on right now. If we're being fucking serious, how are these people going to go and pound the pavement
look,
and get him on the ballot? It takes thousands of signatures
that's
per
what
state.
I'm saying. Who's going to do? Who's going to do that?
Who
now?
are your volunteers at this point? Now that you've switched ballot lines twice in 5 months, who's going to go out there and say, "Yeah, my volunteer hours and my donations are in good hands"? With Cornel West, who's changed his mind now twice in 4 months, and fucking Peter Dow, career loser, interloping, ashtray-faced motherfucker Peter Dow, who's never won anything in his life. Yeah, we're going to trust him. We're going to trust him with our investment of time and resources. Absurd.
Well, that's it. I mean, this is a sad reality of life. And this doesn't just apply to presidential campaigns. This is true in life in general. Never ignore the red flags, man. They're never an accident. They always mean something, and they will almost always compound over time.
Right.
You will almost always find that first red flag told you everything you needed to know.
Right. Indeed. And last point, because I know some people in the chat are saying we're overreaching, we're over speculating, we're making too much of this, we're being divisive. Look, we have the receipts to prove. I mean, certainly I do. I was as excited as anybody in this space for Cornel's run. So I was on board. Okay. So I was not setting him up for failure. I desperately wanted this to be successful. And it does not give me any pleasure to say that it's a failure at this point and that it's over at this point. But it is. I cannot come on here and lie to you and tell you that there's reason to go invest time and resources in the Cornel West campaign. Do I hope they know something we don't? Do I hope they prove me totally wrong? Do I hope I'm eating shit by this time next year and he's polling at 15%? Sure, I hope so. But, I could hope for a lot of things between now and then that I'm not going to get. And I'd be lying if I told you to expect it. So what do you want me to do?
Well, look, as soon as he started pulling this shit, if you remember, I said I think there's going to be a 10% chance he's going to be on the ballot in November. And this was at the moment everyone was very excited. And even man, I wanted to be fair, so I climbed down off that. I was like, hey, I tried to get excited about it, but I'm fucking, I've been around the block, man. Like, as soon as I started seeing some of the signs, I was like, yeah, this motherfucker's not going to do it. I wanted to be wrong. And anything that he did, some of the interviews he did were encouraging. What was the one he did where he kind of redeemed himself?
That was the Meet the Press.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to get excited because look, and this will probably put a button on this unless my esteemed colleague is going to reinforce the impression of our viewer's roommate of this being the Angry Man Show. It is very, very, sad and disconcerting, I think, for a lot of us who were involved in the Sanders campaign in 2016 and 2020. I think as much as we've been burned, we wanted a campaign. Of course we did. Of course we wanted to get behind somebody that we could feel good about and believe in and have some kind of a mission, because in the end, this is going to turn into a year of critiquing the major party candidates, expressing basic disdain for the people who are theoretically running as independents, mostly, and, doing a media analysis of people who are in the tank for one of these fucking losers. Is that the way we would have wanted to spend our first campaign season on YouTube? This is the first campaign season that we've only been on YouTube like less than 2 years.
Yeah, about a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be like the first campaign we're covering. And it's going to be, a dark journey through the savage heart of America, to borrow a phrase from Dr. Thompson. We're going to go out to the primary states. We're going to cover it. It's going to be funny. It's going to be absurd. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of great footage and a lot of interesting angles on where the country's at right now. And that's interesting. I'm excited to do it. But would I rather have been on a mission to change the system in a direct way with a candidate? Sure, of course I would. I mean, that doesn't mean there aren't causes and things that we can support. Obviously, you have a lot going on in labor right now. But yeah, man, I mean, it's going to be a campaign season we're going to be covering without a candidate. And it's a little depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo all that. The only thing I would add to that is that we didn't just want a candidate to want a candidate. It's I think that this year. No, I know that's not what you meant. I just want to add that I actually, the reason we really wanted a candidate this year is because we feel like the establishment is especially vulnerable this year. Because if it's Biden versus Trump, that creates a historic opportunity for a third party candidate. And we'd love to have one that we could full-throatedly support. And we don't have that.
Which Kennedy might be able to do that in terms of what we care about strategically. But I don't think either one of us can get behind Kennedy in the way I think we both felt we could with Cornel.
No, I mean, if you're praising the IDF as valiant, heroic, defenders of freedom,
we're never going to be able to get around that to be like, yeah, did you see what RFK said today? Like, that's just not going to happen. I mean, our coverage of RFK is going to be very clinical.
It's going to be horse race.
It's going to be horse race
to the extent that he can sow chaos within the system.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Please clap.